Story 1. I delivered flowers to her workplace, where the lights were off. She was a receptionist at a small chiropractic clinic. She came out flustered in his t-shirt and tried to play it off as if she was getting adjusted. She was involved with the chiropractor. Story 2. I opened my phone during my lunch break to find numerous Facebook friends messaging me, claiming my wife is cheating on me. It was overwhelming. Apparently, the guy tried to contact me but couldn't reach me directly, so he sent several messages to my Facebook friends to get in touch with me. He discovered she was in a relationship when she went to meet him, then left her and spread the word. This is heartbreaking but also admirable. Thank you, random stranger. Story 3. Things seemed suspicious, so I hired a private investigator. I informed her that I had to go out of town for a short work trip, and the rest was handled swiftly. Story 4. I didn't discover my affair, but my father's. I live near Cleveland, and my grandfather lived a few hours away near Cincinnati. He was in poor health due to excessive drinking and smoking but refused to move here, so my dad would spend weekends there to take care of him. One weekend, my stepmother and I were trying to pay the internet bill and couldn't log in to the account. We called my dad, but he didn't answer. No worries, we called my grandfather's house and found out my dad hadn't visited him in months. I checked my dad's location on Facebook and saw he was in a completely different town, a very small town. I randomly decided to go through his friends list and found a woman who lives in that small town. It turns out he had been having an affair for months and leaving my stepmother alone with my baby brother, little sister, and me most weekends. It's been 10 years, and none of us talk to him anymore. Unfortunately, he has had affairs with every wife he's had. I'm glad to say that my stepmother and I are very close and have a fantastic relationship. She let me stay with her after she kicked him out. Story 5. The mistress added me on 2 different social media platforms, and I had no idea who she was. I found it odd. I mentioned the name of this stranger to my ex-husband, and he looked like he was going to be sick. He disappeared and returned a half-hour later, and the woman had mysteriously blocked me on both platforms. I knew right then. He denied it, but a few weeks later, she did it again. It turns out he had been promising to tell me but kept backing out, and she was threatening to do it for him. I guess it worked. He finally confessed the second time. Story 6. She was bisexual, and our relationship was great. However, a close female friend who identifies as a lesbian came to visit her from 500 kilometers away for a few days. I expressed my discomfort with the situation because, while I trust her, I did not trust her friend's intentions. However, I have female friends, so I refrained from judging. While her friend was visiting, she became distant and took hours to respond to messages. Once her friend left after a week, she continued to act distant. We used to see each other a few times a week, but then she always seemed busy. After 2 months of this behavior, I had enough and requested that we talk. That is when I discovered the truth. Story 7. She carefully disposed of all the evidence but never noticed the used condom in plain view in the bathroom trash can. Story 8. I found 2 unfinished breakfasts on the counter when I returned unexpectedly early from a trip. Then I found 2 used condoms. Story 9. During a heated argument about condoms, it turns out she preferred the kind used by other partners. Story 10. Left their email open on their computer. They were involved with a professor in her master's program who had a long history of complaints about inappropriate relationships with students. I looked him up on a professor rating website. Of course, he discarded her once he was done. Story 11. Not me, but a coworker. During the 1990s, in a small suburb, there was a front-page article about a traffic light finally being installed at an intersection that had frequent accidents. The photo on the front page showed the traffic lights from behind a vehicle, with a clear silhouette of the cheating couple inside. The woman had her arm around the man while he was driving. We were all in the break room when the man opened the paper in shock and started sweating immediately. I wasn't there when his wife found out, but after a couple of days, it became apparent that she did. Story 12. I turned a blind eye for so long. One night, he went to bed angry at me for some ridiculous, fabricated reason, and I guess I had just had enough. I drank a bottle of wine, figured out the password to the laptop I gave him, and went through his emails. Everything was there. Felt like being aware during a nightmare, and I could not wake up. Story 13. I saw a name in my phone, went to Facebook, and noticed that she was friends with someone who shared the same name. I clicked on his profile, and his banner featured two people's feet hanging over a cliff. The woman's feet were hers, wearing shoes I bought for her, along with a tattoo. It was an interesting experience. Story 14. Her phone received a text notification, and she asked who it was from because she wasn't on the couch. I told her, and she ran over as if the house was on fire. I opened the text, and it said, "I'm tired of being involved in this love triangle." That was it. She turned red, and I asked what that meant. She tried to play it off. I naturally went into detective mode, gave her back her phone, and let it go. A week later, I caught her at a bar when she was supposed to be at work. That night, I pried the truth out of her and slept in my car in a parking lot somewhere. Story 15. He was very anxious about me having his phone. He let me know the password but would not leave me alone with it. One time I turned it on to check the time, and he snatched it from me. Surprisingly, cheating wasn't my first thought in that moment. It was only because he was so insistent that I eventually looked through it when he left it out while going for a shower. I did not expect to find messages and photos exchanged with multiple 16-year-old girls. Story 16. A few months after the divorce, I found messages from the man she slept with in Facebook Messenger. He gave a detailed account of the affair. Since we were not friends, the messages went into a spam folder, which is why I had never seen them previously. He sent them 3 months before the divorce. Story 17. At his birthday party, our group of friends invited a girl who would fulfill a moment that I wouldn't. I arrived late because I was preparing a cake and decided to dress less conservatively for the event. Everyone was quiet when I entered and went straight to the bedroom. To my surprise, they were already involved. We were 16 or 17 at the time. I never spoke to him or those friends again. Story 18. He accidentally called me, and I listened to him while on a date with her for hours. I was in shock and couldn't believe it. We are not together anymore, but the universe certainly sent me that accidental call that night. What an unexpected situation. Story 19. I received a message stating, "I have been involved with your partner. I thought you should know she is trying to take your child from you," accompanied by a picture of him holding my son on his shoulders at his home. I still don't believe I have recovered from that. Story 20. Not me, but my husband discovered that his ex-wife was cheating when they went out to eat at a place he hadn't visited before. The owner asked if my husband was her brother. She replied, "No, this is my husband." And the owner said, "Oh, I thought the other guy you come here with was your husband. We visit that eatery regularly now. The owner is a great person who remembers all his customers." Story 21. I suspected something was wrong for months and caught her in lies. I finally accepted the possibility and logged into her laptop and Discord to find explicit messages. We were in an 18-year relationship, 14 of which were married, and she stopped taking birth control because I thought we wanted another child. Feels like half my life is in ruins. Edit. She moved out tonight. I feel completely lost, but I'm trying to cope. Story 22. She told me she cheated on me with my friend of over 10 years, who was also my bandmate. I left town immediately, moved to Ohio, and nearly drank myself to death. Story 23. I was woken up by a phone call at 3 a.m. from my girlfriend's friend's mother, who angrily demanded that I get her daughter home immediately. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about and that I hadn't seen her daughter in several days. Apparently, she and my girlfriend said they were going out with me that evening and then never came back. The next day, I asked my girlfriend what that was all about, and she said they fell asleep at another friend's house and used me as an excuse for where they were going because the mother didn't like the other friend. It didn't sit right with me, but I let it go. Several days later, my girlfriend asked me to get something out of her purse, and I found a piece of paper with a guy's name and number on it. She claimed it was just some guy who had been at that friend's house and must have slipped it into her purse. I wasn't naive, but I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Just then, her phone rang, and I answered it. It was that guy whose number I found. He got annoyed that some guy was at her house and demanded to know who I was. I explained that until just now I had been her boyfriend, but he could have her. I handed her the phone and walked out. I made the mistake of getting back together with her several weeks later after she swore she had told the other guy to get lost. I could say I had no idea why I did that, but it was because she looked great naked, liked to have sex, and I was young and foolish. A couple of months later, I got out of work early and stopped by where she worked. She wasn't there. I asked one of her coworkers where she was, and I was told she wasn't working that day. I could have sworn she said she was, but maybe I was mistaken. Her coworker then said, "You must be her boyfriend, John." Nope, I was her boyfriend right until they used the wrong name. I drove over to her house and waited for her to get home. She arrived on time, wearing her work shirt, and immediately started telling me how rough her shift was. I said, "You should probably be telling John this." Got back into my car and drove off. She tried to get back with me a few months later, but I told her to leave me alone. Story 24. We were technically broken up when this happened. He lived in the spare room in my mom's house with my mom and me. We broke up for various reasons, but my mom let him stay because he had no place to go. They started hanging out more and more. He would go with her to my mom's beach house on the weekends. Then he started taking my cannabis. That's when I put my foot down and kicked him out. It only clicked for me when my mom flipped out on me that they had been involved the whole time. She denied it until she passed away, but she was a terrible liar. Story 25. I was worried. It was late, 1 a.m., and I wondered if he had an accident on his way home from work. I packed up my newborn son in the car to drive to his workplace. I drove into the parking lot and saw him with a woman in the front seat of his truck. I stood there for about 3 seconds before turning around, walking back to my car, and driving home. Story 26. So this is not cheating. I want this to be clear, but it was still devastating. On September 14th, 2020, my then-wife and I had the divorce talk. We decided to divorce. My ex-wife informed me that she would immediately get on dating apps. I didn't see a problem with it at the time. I also naively thought my wife and I might still remain married. The idea was that I would live at home until the end of the year. We were amicable and we had a child together, so we wanted to make the transition for our child as easy as possible. On September 30th, 2020, I had fallen asleep in our child's room during the bedtime routine. My child liked being read to until they fell asleep, and I obliged because I enjoyed it. Anyway, I read until I fell asleep. Around 2 a.m., my child literally kicked me out of bed and onto the floor. When I woke up, I thought, oh, I should get to bed, because my soon-to-be ex-wife and I still shared a bed. But then I heard something. It sounded like my soon-to-be ex moaning. It was her moaning. She was having phone sex, and it was audible in our child's room. So I tormentedly waited until it was over. Then I texted my soon-to-be ex that I could hear her in our child's room, so she needed to 1. Be quieter, and 2. Purchase a noise-canceling machine. She saw the text and texted back to apologize for the noise and expressed remorse for me hearing her move on. It was difficult. So to you Reddit, prior to that night, I thought I could still make it work. I thought my then-wife and I could stay together. While I know my ex did not cheat, I do not feel like she cheated. But for me, it was the moment I understood that it was over. Side note, my ex and I are amicable. I have even met the person my ex had phone sex with that night, and they are amazing and lovely. I am happy to have that person in my child's life. In short, that night was tough, but life since then has been more or less okay. There has never been a Reddit post that invited me to tell this story. This is perhaps the closest, and I wanted to share. One final weird note. My ex did purchase a white noise machine, and now has it in the hall outside her bedroom door. Every time I go to her house and see that white noise machine, I'm reminded of that rough night. I've been able to move past it, but there was a period when seeing that white noise machine made me sick to my stomach. Story 27. I knew something was off, but couldn't find concrete evidence. I took his phone and started texting the names I didn't know, pretending to be him. It turns out one of them was a guy who asked if they could have a threesome with The guy you had been with before me. That's how I learned my ex-husband was into men and cheating on me with them. Story 28. She told me about the first person and the second person she left me for. It has almost been 3 years. I still wonder how much was real and how long she was waiting for something better to come along. Some stones are better left unturned, I suppose. Story 29. World of Warcraft. We used to play together. One day, I saw her logged in at an unusual time. I messaged her and it was the other partner. I don't blame them. They were just as shocked. Story 30. Her lover called her to say what a great time he had and couldn't wait to see her again. She was asleep, so I checked her phone since I thought it could be work-related. I'm sure he wanted me to find out. So, I called his pregnant wife and let her know what was going on. He paid child support for the next 18 years. Story 31. Her sister called me and said she was involved with her drug dealer. It was already over by that point, but that was the final straw. Story 32. I started an old phone of hers and found messages. Then I set up surveillance and watched her with him live on my bed while I was away for a couple of nights for work. Story 33. I guess her partner got tired of her saying she would leave me because he sent me a video of him with her. Story 34. My obstetrician gynecologist told me I had just had our first child. He called out someone else's name at an inopportune moment, flatly denied it, and rather than risk an explosion, I let it go. His work colleague, who was also his affair partner, gave him a sexually transmitted disease which he shared with me. Story 35. He asked if we could reschedule our trip. After I changed all the arrangements, I accidentally received a trip confirmation for the two of them on my birthday weekend, no less. Story 36. I had one of our outdoor security cameras charging on the dock in our bedroom. I left for my night shift. While in my office, the camera that was charging in my room kept sending me alerts that it was picking up sound. That's when I realized my wife was talking on the phone at 10 p.m. in our bedroom. This was very unusual behavior for her. I started listening to the camera and overheard their entire conversation. I heard my wife flirting with another man and giggling. Then they began discussing their relationship and how coworkers were starting to notice. I listened for a long time. It was sickening. I left work and drove straight home. My wife happened to track my location for some reason and saw I was a few miles away. She got nervous when she noticed the camera on the charger. She knew she was caught. Story 37. We were secretly working on our marriage after I moved out and hadn't informed our friends. Once I decided I was done and stopped hiding it, I shared with some friends. One of them told me about a concert he attended with a few friends, her and her companion. He went up to their hotel room for drinks before the show and noticed she and her companion were sharing a single king bed, spending the whole night very close to each other. That same night, she was texting me, expressing her love and excitement about finally being able to tell our friends that things were working out, and that she wished I was there. Story 38. Found 2 tickets for a Valentine's Day train ride. We didn't do anything for Valentine's Day because she was sick. Story 39. I used Reddit before I met him, and he didn't use social media. He downloaded Reddit after seeing me use it and then proceeded to cheat on me there. Story 40. He told me. Stupidly, I took him back after breaking up, then married him. Years later, he told me again. His sister told him if he didn't change, she would. It finally sank in after he told me he never turns down intimacy. Seriously, fast forward to my second husband. A couple of years into our marriage, suddenly his phone never leaves his side and he has all these single female friends. I found a phone number he called frequently. I don't think there was even a name, so I called it using his phone. He told her we were divorced. I also found texts that he thought were deleted. Older flip phone. It kept the last 10 to 15 cent messages. He was definitely emotionally cheating on me. Still stupid, I stayed around until he left me. He claims he never physically cheated on me. At least if he did, I know he would use protection. I am married again and think I know the signs now. I won't give him a second chance, and he wouldn't give me one either. We've both been cheated on, so we know how it feels. He doesn't do anything to make me jealous or doubt him, and vice versa. Story 41. I house sat for my partner while her family went on vacation. The computer screen was on and an online service was open. My girlfriend left her evidence out in the open. Story 42. I found her alternative Reddit account, where she posted nude photos and detailed stories about their adventures together. Story 43. Strange behavior changes in his routine. I reviewed his credit card bills and noticed charges for flowers and dinners. I found photos later. Story 44. I knew it intuitively. I always know when they cheat. Every single time I get a bad feeling. The first time I found a naughty text while she was sleeping. The second time it was the same situation. The third time I walked in the door with a strange feeling, and she outright confessed to cheating. So, I guess I have a sixth sense for infidelity. Note, these were 3 separate girlfriends. Story 45. We were walking to our seats at a concert when a woman approached him, hugged him, and started talking to him, his daughter and son-in-law. Eventually, she asked who I was, and he replied, "This is under." She turned to me, shook my hand, and said, "Hi, I'm under. I'm the other woman," and then walked away. To make matters worse, he glared at me as if I had done something wrong. He refused to tell me anything about her and wouldn't talk to me or even look at me for the entire concert. Alone with him in the car on the way home, he still refused to share who she was or what was happening between them. Ultimately, he threw me out of his car while yelling, "You're the one causing problems." Story 46. iCloud. Her behavior was really suspicious, and she accused me of cheating on her with an acquaintance I saw once every other year. I had her login, so I opened it up, and I discovered a multitude of pictures of her and her former partner. Story 47. A year and a half after she forced me to delete my own Snapchat account, stating that married people have no business on that app and that it is just for cheaters. Story 48. My son saw his mother in a cafe with her arms around one of her work colleagues. She made him keep it a secret for over a year. He now lives with me. If you see this, watch your back because I never forgive. Story 49. A friend of mine built the main part of the house for his girlfriend at that time. He had a bad feeling and left a keylogger on her laptop after noticing some strange behavior. It turned out she was having an affair with an ice hockey player who looked very similar to him. He printed the messages and read them aloud while she was driving, and he was sitting next to her. She cried. He wanted a document because he wanted to get his money back, of course. Story 50. I may delete this later because nothing is anonymous here. An ex of the person my partner was cheating with told me. I confronted my partner, and we began to resolve the issue. I found out that my partner was not the only one involved, and even after attending therapy together, there were 2 more instances. I discovered the other 3 due to trust issues and by looking through an old phone. I still feel shame for doing that. Story 51. When I discovered she was dating her boss shortly after ending our relationship without warning, I was shocked. We were engaged, lived together, and were planning our wedding. I saw no signs that anything was wrong. We had even been intimate regularly until the end. Felt very strange. Story 52. She went through her friend, who was friends with my friend, to communicate with me. She couldn't have the courage to tell me herself. Story 53. I had a gut feeling at work, so I left early and went to our apartment. She was on the balcony, relaxing in my t-shirt. Story 54. I was going through a desk drawer looking for W-2 forms. I found a receipt for lingerie that was definitely not my size. Story 55. She kept going to her parents' holiday house on weekends. One weekend, I decided to listen to her iPod because we used to have the same taste in music. I opened the iPod, and her phone had synced to it with photos of the new guy at the holiday house. Story 56. She confessed as we walked out of the divorce court. I had a suspicion, so that confirmed it. In the past, I read an email between her and a coworker. There was another one when she got pregnant by a friend. Story 57. She was scrolling through her contacts in front of me. A guy I knew had an eggplant emoji by his name. I uncovered the rest. Story 58. I knew she had an emotional affair before she realized it herself. 2 or 3 months before I found the evidence on her phone, I noticed that she got less upset than usual when I did something she didn't like around our apartment. I don't remember what it was, but I recall her fairly cool reaction. After that, I saw the signs clearly. Her phone stayed face down on the table and never left her side. I took a vacation with her mother until I got the opportunity to check her phone. I recorded a video of the messages with my phone because it was impossible to read just the ones from the last 3 days. She came out of the shower, and I confronted her. It was a fun vacation afterwards. Story 59. Through my website, I have a client inquiry form and multiple emails explaining everything. It was a challenging process. Story 60. I'm still choosing denial, but looking back, the information was presented to me clearly. When I called it out, I was dismissed. Whoever reads this and feels my pain, I hope it helps you, and get out. I'm doing the same. Story 61. His victim posted a call-out about him on Facebook after she became an adult. He groomed her for the first 3 years of their relationship, but I never questioned their friendship despite the age gap because she was like his little sister. Story 62. She sent me 2 text messages that were supposed to be for another person. I didn't say anything right away, but that night when I asked her about it, she nearly choked on her food. Story 63. She went on a work trip for a week and met a girl there. She apparently fell in love with her and initiated kissing, eventually bringing her back to her hotel room. While the girl was still in her hotel room, she texted me, saying she was not feeling good because her body was rejecting being away from me. I thought that was ironic given what had just happened. They both apparently agreed to let things happen as they may, despite the fact that we are married. When she came home, she was very distant. She refused to shower when I asked her to because I wanted to be intimate. I took her on a date that weekend, and while getting ready, she shut the bedroom door. When I walked in, I found her taking suggestive pictures. She told me she was posting them on Snapchat to feel better about herself, but conveniently left out the name of the girl I was suspicious about. I wouldn't have found the pictures odd if she hadn't felt the need to over-explain. The day after, she was secretive with her phone, changed her lock code, and removed my facial recognition access. When I asked her if she cheated, she insisted she didn't and even called me crazy for suggesting it. I cried for 24 hours afterward, unable to stop because I had a gut feeling. She sat in the living room, irritated with me, and said it was unfair that I was crying. Last Thursday, she woke up half asleep and left her phone open, so I looked at it. Just 6 hours earlier, she had texted the girl, saying she wished she could come to have sex with her in our bed and that she loved her. They still talk. Story 64. I found a pair of panties in his bed. He told me they must belong to the cleaning lady and that she probably had her boyfriend over while she was cleaning the apartment. Story 65. You know how sometimes when you are switching back and forth between different applications on your iPhone, it displays the name of the previous application in the corner? Story 66. This is the first thread I have ever found where you cannot upvote any of the comments, except for the song or poem. Sorry to all of you. I hope you are all doing better now. Story 67. He played a song stating, "My wife found WhatsApp messages on my phone. She knows we're seeing each other and that we're going out." I actually discovered they were going out after checking his WhatsApp messages. He wasn't very smart. Story 68. I'm not entirely certain about the timeline because she chose to end our relationship. However, she either started seeing someone shortly before or immediately after, and I discovered this because her friend, who was acting irrationally, reached out to me on LinkedIn to suggest that I should get tested. I am fairly certain that this was not accurate, but she was just trying to cause as much harm as possible. Story 69. I was completely ignored and blocked. A few weeks later, a mutual friend informed me that they had slept with 2 people during the time we were together. Story 70. I didn't find out for sure until several years after I ended the relationship, but I had my suspicions. He would always hide who he was texting, lie about where he was and who he was with, and accuse me of cheating over any small thing. I learned for sure when I posted something on social media about how I was glad I hadn't grown up in the internet age because I was relieved there were no pictures of me naked in a tub all over the internet. I was suddenly inundated with hateful messages from people in his circle, accusing me of being obsessed with him and his children and hating kids in general. This was how I discovered he had 2 kids with the girl he was cheating on me with, and their relationship status showed they had started dating 2 years before I broke up with him. Based on pregnancy timing, she must have become pregnant right after I ended things, and I've often wondered if he got her pregnant on purpose so at least one of his partners couldn't leave him. I definitely dodged a bullet, though. It's been over a decade since then, and I still have to keep him blocked everywhere because he will reach out and try to reconnect with me, as if he's serious. Story 71. We were together for 6 months, or at least that's what I thought. One random night, I discovered that I was her affair and that she had been dating someone for over 2 years. Story 72. I texted my colleague to ask where he was since he wasn't answering calls. She had no idea that I was his girlfriend. Story 73. She sat on the toilet for a long time with the door locked, which was unusual for her. She would also be online on a messaging application. When I confronted her, she thought I was being unreasonable and denied everything. Story 74. My best friend at the time had a boyfriend who informed me that she had slept with my husband. Years later, when she told him, he had enough respect to inform me because she was acting like my best friend while being the reason I was mentally breaking down, believing my husband was cheating. I just needed evidence. He supported me through it. Her now ex-boyfriend thought it was terrible how they both lied to me. It was painful. I lost my best friend that day and my trust in my husband. Story 75. Not a partner but a family member. He died and we obtained his financial records. He had been having an affair for 26 years and had a child with her. He bought her a car, a house, and everything she wanted. She was content to stay quiet and collect the money and bonuses. They attended his funeral and everything. Much more was uncovered, but it seemed that the information was widely known outside the family. Story 76. I got a sexually transmitted infection 3 times in 2 years. The first time, I thought I contracted it in a hospital after a gynecological surgery. The second time, I believed he transmitted it back to me since he didn't take his medications properly. However, both instances coincided with educational conferences he attended while I could not, mostly because he informed me about them too late for me to organize my schedule or failed to tell me until he was already there with his friends. After the second incident, I insisted we both get negative tests before any sexual intercourse. Meanwhile, I discovered that it is very unlikely to contract that infection in any other way than through sexual transmission. Then, after one more conference, I got it again. I confronted him, and he admitted everything but tried to convince me it was something new. I provided him with the exact timeline of when it all started. And yes, it coincided with the time I had an operation and could not engage in sexual activity for 2 weeks. He certainly did not waste any time. Later, when I reflected on the situation, I realized there were many signs I chose to ignore. I could have saved myself from the pain right from the beginning if I hadn't listened to his excuses. Story 77. A coworker came over to help him with some work around the house. I spoke with him multiple times, and he would not make any eye contact with me. I knew, deep down, that my suspicions were correct. He was having an affair with one of his colleagues. Always trust your instincts, and perhaps the guilt of their coworkers. Story 78. He did nothing to hide it. He wanted me to find out so that I would end it and take the blame. I had no problem being the one who took the blame. Story 79. I placed a tracker on my truck without informing her. They are inexpensive and function well. It plugged directly into the OBD2 port in the dashboard. I realized she was not where she claimed to be. On the positive side, the tracker provided me with his address, and I had a conversation with his wife. Story 80. First boyfriend. The girl befriended me, and after a few weeks of us hanging out, she called me and told me everything. Second boyfriend. I found the video he made with my coworker on his iPad while he was running an errand during a trip together. Third boyfriend. A random stranger sent me a message on Instagram asking if I am also seeing the guy she has been sleeping with for months. Story 81. The first time was when he left his Facebook page open, and I snooped while he was gone and read through his messages. Another time, the other woman messaged me and shared her thoughts. Additionally, I found messages on his phone a third time because he did not hide them well enough. Story 82. I was at an Olive Garden in a nearby city with my friend and saw my wife with another man. True story, I was that guy. Story 83. I had a nagging feeling that something was wrong for 6 months, but I didn't know what was causing it. Then, during a fight, my wife said something that stuck with me, and suddenly everything she had done in the last few months was in doubt. Buying new bras, waxing her thighs, and trimming there, and getting together with office colleagues. A week later, I asked her for her phone and found evidence. Story 84. Well, if you are observant, you can notice when something is happening. I consider myself a very observant man. I can detect even the slightest mood changes, expressions, touch, tone, and engagement. It is not hard to see if you know what to look for. I mention this because I never overreact to anything. I observe normally, and things reveal themselves quickly at times. I mean, come on. You know when something is off, you just do. Unless you are manipulated or unaware, you would notice the signs. The signs are always there with every occasion. No two situations are the same, but the same mannerisms appear at different levels. Story 85. I received messages indicating that she was unfaithful. I didn't believe it at first, but then she started accusing me of the same. I received more messages and realized she had been going through my phone while I was sleeping, so I remained silent about it. The messages were deleted, and the accounts were blocked from my end a day later. Story 86. Footage calls with providers, licensed pictures in his camera roll, transactions, and unusual photos of him holding up a certain number of fingers. Story 87. She drove us to a hike and told me when we reached the top of the trail. It was a tense walk and drive back. Story 88. I was at a party with a friend when a girl approached me and asked if I was someone's girlfriend. I replied yes, and she said, "Oh, well, he's sleeping with someone else. Thought you should know." That sobered me up quickly. I went to his house at 2 a.m., knocked on the door, and he told me to leave because you're out being inappropriate. I explained that I had not been and that I had been crying all night to anyone who would listen. I then turned around and left. I took him back like the fool I was. We had 4 children together and bought a house. Now he's struggling with substance abuse and living on the streets. I certainly know how to pick them. Story 89. At the Woodlands checkpoint, my phone died, so I had to use his phone. It was wiped clean except for a message in the email outbox folder. Story 90. A girl texted me on Facebook to tell me he was cheating on me with her. She was surprised when I informed her we had been broken up for months and that he was no longer my concern. I later discovered that most of his friends and family were unaware of our breakup. Story 91. She called me instead of her friend, crying because the guy she cheated on me with wasn't paying her enough attention. Story 92. She suddenly started to spend evenings with her work colleagues, mostly female. I thought it was great since she hated the workplace she had before, and we had tried together to find a suitable workplace. She liked it there and seemed to have some connections now. I was happy for her. It started to happen more regularly, and at some point, her drinking with sleepover events at her female coworker's house began to occur every 3 to 4 weeks. At the same time, she started to distance herself from me. I tried to fix it by working out a lot, losing weight, gaining muscle, and doing more romantic things with her. I guess I tried to compensate for her distancing. After one of these sleepovers, she came home in the morning still tired. She lay down on the sofa while I went outside with our dog. When we returned to her, she got up and created more physical distance. I was confused, but it prompted me to seek a deeper conversation about her distancing and how we wanted our relationship to progress after 7 years together. It was during this talk that we decided to split up. She said she had lost her feelings, and I realized I had become distant too. I was devastated. At that point, I had some thoughts about these sleepovers, but I couldn't pinpoint them, so I left it as it was. A few weeks later, I was at my own new place, and things were getting better and better. However, I couldn't see our dog as frequently as I wished. Then, a woman contacted me, asking if I was her ex-boyfriend. I asked who she was, and she revealed that she was the ex-wife of my ex's coworker. It seemed he had left his wife for my ex. According to her, this had been going on for at least 3 months while we were still in our relationship. I wrote to my ex and informed her that this woman had contacted me. My ex responded, "She is crazy. Don't listen to her." She didn't directly address the claims, so I asked her point blank, "Did you have an affair? Did we break up because of him?" She replied, "Our breakup has nothing to do with him." So I guess I got my answer. As far as I know, she had a baby a year later, and he returned to his ex-wife and their 2 children. I don't know if my ex's child is the child of her coworker, but I had no further contact with her after those texts. Story 93. The husband's partner found me on Facebook. He is a good person, and I am glad he did. My soon-to-be ex-husband is not a good individual. Story 94. I sensed something was wrong when she abruptly left me. I had a feeling something was off for months prior, such as her hiding her phone, being out more often, and seeming distant. When she left, I checked her old phone, which she had abandoned after getting a new one a month earlier. I found numerous explicit images and videos of her that she had sent to someone and some that person had sent her, all from the time I suspected something was amiss. That was in 2023. I filed for divorce upon discovering this, and the rest is history. Always trust your instincts, everyone. Story 95. She came back from a trip with her friends, one of whom she used to have a crush on in the past. After the trip, she wanted to break up and was coming up with various excuses. Mid-sentence, I stopped her and bluntly asked, "Is it him?" She admitted they had been intimate. That was it. I had my suspicions that something happened after her sudden attitude change following the trip. Story 96. My best friend went to a music festival and saw someone there kissing another guy. He took a picture and called me immediately. Story 97. He tried calling her. I went to answer but just missed the call. She left messages with explicit content between them. Story 98. Through his best friend, a few months after my husband told me he wanted a divorce because he needed a woman who needed him. Story 99. My ex-wife and I were small business owners. One night at the storefront, I noticed that her email was still logged in. I was just about to close the browser when I noticed the email address. It was my ex-wife's first name followed by a different last name that I had never heard or seen before. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened an email. It was a 2-year-long email chain between her and the person she eventually divorced me for. I printed out the entire email chain, had it bound, and put it away for safekeeping. Eventually, when the divorce proceedings began and it was time to consult with lawyers, I retrieved the binder and gave it to her. No negotiations were necessary. Story 100. Not me, but my best friend was involved with a woman who had a boyfriend. He was dropping her off one night, and the boyfriend was sitting on the porch. My friend apparently hit the gas as she got out and left her behind. Story 101. My ex-wife was unfaithful multiple times. Please understand that I stayed in the relationship for the sake of our children. When I met her, she had a 1-year-old whom I raised as if he were my own, and we later had a son together. I knew divorce would mean losing my stepson and separating 2 brothers. Here are some examples of how I discovered her infidelity. I found men's underwear in the laundry that did not belong to me. I saw late-night texts when she forgot to silence her phone. A neighbor told me they saw someone leaving my driveway while I was at work. I received a message from a woman on Facebook stating, "Your wife is cheating on you with my boyfriend." I came home from a Valentine's dinner to find someone had surprised her at our house. I used a phone locator and discovered she was at a house in the suburbs instead of shopping as she claimed. A friend informed me, "Hey, I saw your wife on a dating app." Since it was my cell plan, I could check the bill and see the numbers she was texting. I could monitor the internet router to see which websites she visited. She was fired from work for having an inappropriate relationship with a coworker. She accidentally logged into our kid's tablet, syncing her information and photos, which revealed things I should never have seen. I found a video of her online that went viral, showing her in a threesome. In total, she cheated numerous times during our years together, at least that I know of. She struggled with significant emotional issues. We attempted therapy, but she refused to continue when therapists pointed out truths she did not want to confront. She was briefly committed for attempting suicide. Despite this, I believe she made an effort and we shared some good years. I doubt she intended to be that way. It was merely a part of who she was. She described her feelings as an addiction to the thrill of being pursued. She became frustrated if someone did not express interest in her. She would do anything for their approval and attention, feeling validated only after being intimate with them. My affection and desire did not matter to her because I was already hers. It was like a sexual version of an obsession. To her credit, she recognized her shortcomings. One day, she left for work and never returned, abandoning the children without a custody dispute. She needed to pursue her own path, and her departure ultimately improved my life. I raised my son alone for 4 years, and now I am happily remarried to an incredible woman. Story 102. We'd been together for 3.5 years and had moved in together for 1 year. There were many signs that I later recognized as significant red flags, but at the time, I completely trusted her, and it never crossed my mind that she would cheat on me. This culminated one night when she started expressing her unhappiness and suggested that we should take a break. That was when I became suspicious enough to check her phone while she was asleep. I found numerous affectionate texts and discovered she had been involved with a guy from her graduate course for 4 months. I just left and went to a 24-hour shop and bought a pack of cigarettes, which I had quit when she moved in. I also lost a very old friend in the process. She was the person who introduced me to my girlfriend. It turns out she had known about the affair the entire time, and my girlfriend had even confided in her about her infatuation with this guy and her desire to cheat before it actually happened. For some reason, I still don't fully understand. This friend, whom I considered one of my oldest and most trusted, didn't say a word to me about it. We still talk, but we have never been close since then. I almost forgot to mention that she ended her relationship with her affair partner 2 months later. It seems the grass isn't always greener. Story 103, 3 years of suspicion and 18 months of direct questions to her, which were denied. One recorded conversation proved the affair, and now I am the bad guy for stalking. Story 104. I suspected she was cheating while I was deployed. I came home on a mission for answers. One night while we were intimate, she switched to a position she claimed to like. But I knew we had never done that, nor had she mentioned it before. After that, I found condoms hidden in a filing cabinet that we never used. She said she was hiding them for a friend of hers who was having an affair. Story 105. My husband, who was 32 years old, was supposed to be helping our new neighbor, who is 61 years old, in her garage. Started getting late, so I went to check on him. I caught them in an inappropriate situation. I filed for divorce the next day. Story 106. There was a lot of suspicious behavior, so I asked to see her phone and checked her frequent locations. This was before location sharing was available. I discovered thousands of texts, calls, photos, hotel receipts, diary entries, and a second cell phone. I also caught her at the other person's place several times. If you ever start discovering similar things, do not hesitate to leave immediately. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.